I remember the exact moment I understood I was second place in my own family. I was 14, standing in the doorway of our living room while my parents sat on the couch with my younger brother between them. They were looking at his report card like it was a sacred text. 3 B's and 2 C's. My father's hand rested on his shoulder. I had gotten straight A's that semester. My report card was still in my backpack. It was there for 3 more days until I left it on the kitchen counter one morning before school. No one ever mentioned it. That's when I knew, if your own parents can't see you, who can? The favoritism wasn't loud, it wasn't cruel, it was in the details. The way they asked him about his day and assumed mine was fine. The way his birthday parties had themes and mine had cake. The way his college fund was discussed openly at dinner while mine was something I'd have to figure out myself, they said, because I was more independent. I wasn't more independent, I was just less visible. My brother, Ethan, had been sick when he was 7. His illness had sent my parents into waiting rooms at 3 in the morning, holding coffee cups with shaking hands and making promises to God. He recovered, but they never did. They wrapped him in bubble wrap made of attention and excuses, and I became the son who didn't need anything because I wasn't the one who almost died. I understood it. I even forgave it. But understanding something doesn't mean it doesn't hollow you out. My father ran a mid-sized logistics company, not Fortune 500, but respected, steady. He'd built it from the ground up, and it was his pride. More than us, if I'm being honest, maybe equal to Ethan. The summer after I graduated high school, I told him I wanted to work for him. Not as a favor, not as an internship, as an employee. I'd start at the bottom, I said. Learn the operation from the inside out. I was also enrolled in night classes at the local university, business management, but I wanted to be in the company, proving myself in real time. He was overjoyed. I'll never forget the way his face lit up. For once, he had my full attention. He called his friends, his partners, told everyone his son was joining the family business. He didn't say oldest son, just son, like I was the only one. I held on to that feeling for years. I started in the warehouse. Inventory tracking, shipment coordination, loading dock schedules. I showed up early, stayed late, and kept my mouth shut unless I had something worth saying. I learned the names of every driver, every dispatcher, every client account manager. I learned which clients were patient and which ones needed their shipments yesterday. I learned how to read a balance sheet, how to spot inefficiencies in routing, how to talk to people in a way that made them feel heard. Within 2 years, I wasn't just competent, I was trusted. The older guys in the company, the ones who'd been there since before I was born, started pulling me aside to ask my opinion. Clients began requesting me specifically when they had issues. My father would brag about me at company events, his voice swelling with pride. "My son runs the tightest operation we've ever had," he'd say, hand on my shoulder. I lived for those moments. I shouldn't have, but I did. Ethan, meanwhile, was in college, a private university 3 hours away, studying business administration. He came home on breaks and showed up at the office once, maybe twice a semester. He'd walk through in his clean sneakers and expensive jacket, shake a few hands, sit in on a meeting, then disappear again. My father would beam every time, introduce him as my youngest, the college man. No one at the company took him seriously, but no one needed to. He wasn't there to earn respect. He was there to inherit it. I knew that. I'd always known that. But I told myself that if I worked hard enough, if I became indispensable enough, maybe it wouldn't matter. Maybe competence could compete with legacy. 4 years passed. I moved up. Inventory manager, operations supervisor, client relations lead. I wasn't given these titles easily. I earned every single one. Late nights, problem solving, cleaning up messes no one else wanted to touch. I learned to negotiate with suppliers, handle logistics nightmares, and smooth over client complaints. The company grew during those years. Revenue up 18%, client retention at an all-time high. I wasn't the only reason, but I was part of it, a big part. Ethan graduated. There was a party. Catered, full family, friends, co-workers. My father gave a speech about how proud he was, about legacy, about the future. He looked at Ethan the entire time, and I realized I was standing in the back of the room holding a glass of champagne I hadn't touched, completely invisible again. 2 weeks later, Ethan joined the company full-time. I didn't think much of it at first. He started in a mid-level position, business development, something vague and client-facing that didn't require him to know how anything actually worked. He was charming, good with people. I helped him when he asked, explained processes, introduced to key clients, covered for him when he double-booked meetings or forgot to follow up on leads. And I kept working, kept building, kept waiting for the moment my father would see what I'd done, what I was still doing. The email came on a Tuesday morning. Subject line, all staff meeting, important announcement. I was in the middle of coordinating a shipment delay for one of our largest accounts, so I didn't think much of it. Probably a new policy, maybe a restructure. I finished the call, grabbed my coffee, and headed to the conference room. My parents were already there. So was Ethan. He was wearing a suit I'd never seen before. Navy, tailored, expensive. My mother's eyes were glossy. My father stood at the head of the table, hands clasped, smiling wider I'd seen in months. The room filled, heads of departments, senior staff, a few key managers. I sat near the middle, notepad in hand, still thinking this was routine. My father cleared his throat. Thank you all for being here. I'll keep this brief. As many of you know, this company has been my life's work. And as I look toward the future, I'm confident we're in good hands. He paused, looked at Ethan. Effective immediately, I'm proud to announce that Ethan will be stepping into the role of Vice President of Operations. The room erupted in polite applause. People smiled, nodded, a few even stood to shake Ethan's hand. I sat completely still, my pen frozen mid-air over a blank page. Vice President of Operations, the role I had been doing in every way that mattered for the past 2 years. My father continued, Ethan brings fresh perspective, a strong educational foundation, and a deep understanding of where this company needs to go. I'm confident he'll lead us into the next era. Fresh perspective, educational foundation, not experience, not years of service, not the person who held this company together when supply chains collapsed during the pandemic. I looked at my mother. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at Ethan, hands folded in her lap, smiling like she'd just watched him win a trophy. I looked at my father. He was shaking Ethan's hand, both hands, and I looked at Ethan. He caught my eye for a half second, and I saw something flicker there. Not guilt, just an acknowledgement. He knew this wasn't fair, but fairness had never been part of the equation. After the meeting, my father pulled me aside, his hand on my shoulder, firm, familiar. He said, I need you to help him. You know this company better than anyone. He's going to need your guidance as he transitions into the role. I stared at him. You want me to train him for the position I should have. His face hardened just slightly. This isn't about should-haves. This is about what's best for the company. Ethan is family. He's the future. You've always been a team player. I'm counting on you. I nodded, not because I agreed, but because I didn't have the energy to fight. I helped him, of course I did. I walked him through client portfolios, explained operational workflows, introduced him to key department heads who already knew my name. I sat in meetings where he'd present ideas I'd handed him the day before, watching people nod and smile like he was a visionary. And I watched him make mistakes, small ones at first, missed deadlines, forgotten follow-ups, confused priorities, but then they got bigger. He greenlit a logistics route change that cost us $30,000 in the first month. He miscommunicated a contract term to a client, nearly losing the account. He scheduled a warehouse inspection on the same day as a major shipment, causing a 6-hour delay that our competitors gleefully capitalized on.
5 major mistakes in 2 months. The company felt it. Clients started calling me directly, asking if I could handle their accounts instead. Department heads would CC me on emails meant for him just to make sure things actually got done. Morale dipped, efficiency dropped, and my father said nothing.
Then came the family meeting. Not at the office, at my parents' house. The same dining room where I used to eat dinner in silence while they asked Ethan about his day. My father sat at the head of the table, my mother beside him, hands folded, Ethan across from me, looking exhausted. "We have a situation," my father began. "There's been feedback from clients, from staff, about Ethan's performance." I said nothing. "It's clear he needs more time to adjust, so we've decided that for the next few months, you'll step in as acting VP. Ethan will take a lower profile, focus on learning, and when things stabilize, he'll resume the role." I let the words settle, tasted them. Then I laughed, not loud, just a short, hollow sound. "No." My mother blinked. "Excuse me?" I said, "No, I'm not doing this." My father's jaw tightened. "This isn't a request. This is what's best for the company. The company you just handed to someone who's proven he can't run it. He's your brother, and I'm your son." The words came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't take them back. "You've always been difficult about this," my mother said, her voice thin and strained. "Ever since you were young, you've resented Ethan." "I don't resent him. I resent being invisible." "You're not invisible," my father said. "You're integral to this company. Everyone knows that." "Then why am I not vice president?" Silence. "Because he almost died when he was 7, I continued. "Because you spent the last 15 years trying to make up for it by giving him everything, including things he hasn't earned? I get it. I understand why. But I'm done paying the price for your guilt." My father stood. "You need to remember who you're talking to. I'm talking to the man who taught me that respect is earned, that competence is important, and then I watched you ignore every one of those principles the moment it was inconvenient. If you walk away from this, you're walking away from this family." I stood too, slowly. "I'm walking away from being an afterthought." I resigned the next morning. Formal letter, 2 weeks' notice, professional to the last word. I didn't make a scene, didn't tell anyone why, just said I was pursuing other opportunities. I moved out of my parents' house that weekend. I'd been living there to save money, and because some part of me still thought proximity might make them see me. I rented a small 1-bedroom across town. It was quiet, empty, mine. I started applying for jobs immediately. Mid-level operations roles, logistics management, client relations. I had the experience. I had the references. Within 2 weeks, I had 3 offers. I took the one that felt the most like a clean start. A competitor, actually. Smaller company, but growing fast. They wanted someone who understood operational scaling, someone who could build systems from the ground up. I was good at that. Turned out I'd been doing it my whole life. The first 6 months were a blur. I worked harder than I ever had, not because I had to prove anything, but because I finally wanted to. I rebuilt their entire logistics framework, streamlined vendor contracts, redesigned client onboarding. Revenue grew, client retention skyrocketed. And when the CEO pulled me into his office to tell me I was being promoted to Director of Operations, I realized something. I wasn't just good at this. I was better than I ever allowed myself to believe. I heard things through the industry grapevine. My father's company was struggling. Ethan had stepped back down after another round of costly mistakes, and my father had brought in an outside hire to fill the VP role, someone with no emotional investment, no history, just competence. It stung, not because I wanted the role anymore, but because it was proof that they'd always known what mattered. They just hadn't cared when it was me. I stopped going home, stopped answering calls unless they were work-related, and even those I let go to voicemail.
My parents tried at first. My mother left long, rambling messages about family and forgiveness and how I was being unreasonable. My father's messages were shorter, stiffer. We should talk. Call me back. I didn't. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger takes energy, and I'd spent enough of my life feeding theirs. I just didn't have space for them. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Then, about a year after I left, my mother called on a Sunday morning. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hi, sweetheart." Her voice was small, tentative. "Hi, Mom. I just wanted to hear your voice." I didn't say anything. "We miss you, your father and I. We've been talking, and we realize we didn't handle things well, with you, with Ethan, with everything." I sat down on the edge of my couch, staring out the window at nothing. "We were scared," she continued. "When Ethan was sick, we were so scared, and I think we never stopped being scared. We wanted to protect him, to make sure he had everything, and we didn't see what we were doing to you." "You saw," I said quietly. "You just didn't care enough to stop." She was crying now. I could hear it in her breath. "I'm sorry. We're both so sorry." I told her I needed time, that I wasn't ready to come back, to sit at that table and pretend everything was fine. She asked if she could call again. I said maybe. I meant it. 2 years later, I'm a VP at my company. I lead a team of 40, manage 8-figure client accounts, and get asked to speak at industry conferences. My self-esteem isn't just high, it's solid. I've started dating someone. I've made friends, too. I've built a life that doesn't revolve around proving I'm worth loving. My parents call once a month now. I answer about half the time. The conversations are careful, surface level. They ask about work. I tell them I'm doing well. They don't ask me to come home anymore. I think they know better. Ethan reached out a few months ago. A text. Simple. "I'm sorry for how things went down. You deserved better. I hope you're doing okay." I read it 3 times. Then I wrote back, "I'm doing more than okay. I hope you are too." Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd stayed, if I'd swallowed my pride, played the supporting role, waited for scraps of recognition that might never come. And I'm grateful, deeply grateful that I didn't. Because here's what I learned. You can't earn love from people who've already decided you're not worth seeing. You can't prove your value to people who've built their world around someone else's, and you shouldn't have to. The other day, I was in a meeting with a potential client, a big one, and they asked me how I got to where I am. I could have given them the polished answer, the resume version, but instead, I told them the truth. I worked for my father's company for 6 years, gave everything I had, and when it came time to choose a successor, he chose my younger brother, not because he was better, but because he was loved more. So I left, started over, and built something they couldn't take from me. The room went quiet. Then the client smiled. "Sounds like you learned early what most people take a lifetime to figure out, that the only approval that matters is your own." I nodded, because he was right. I don't know if I'll ever fully reconcile with my parents. Maybe one day we'll sit down and have the conversation we should have had years ago. Or maybe we won't. Maybe some wounds are too deep, some distances too far away. And I'm okay with that. If you're listening to this, and you've ever felt like the second choice in your own family, the backup plan, the one who's always good enough to help but never good enough to lead, I want you to hear this. You don't owe anyone your smallness. You don't owe anyone your silence. And you sure as hell don't owe anyone a lifetime of proving you were worth loving in the first place. Walk away. Build something they can't touch. And when they finally realize what they lost, you'll be too far ahead to look back.